Welcome to the Customer Wins Podcast, where business leaders discuss their secrets and techniques for helping their customers succeed and in turn grow their business.
Hi, I'm Rich Walker, the host of the Customer Wins, where I talk to business leaders about how they help their customers win and how their focus on customer experience leads to growth. Some of my past guests have included Molly Pierce of Track That Advisor, Dan Zitting of Nitrogen, and Brian Portnoy of Shaping Wealth. Today, I'm speaking with Bill Cates, the original referral coach. And today's episode is brought to you by Quick, the leader in enterprise forms processing. When your business relies upon processing forms, don't waste your team's valuable time manually reviewing the forms. Instead, get Quick. Using Quick, you'll be able to generate completed forms and get back clean, context-rich data that reduces manual reviews to only 1 out of 1,000 submissions. Visit quickforms.com to get started. All right, before I introduce today's guest in full, I want to give a big thank you to Colleen Bowler of C&J Innovations for introducing me to Bill. She was a prior guest on the show, has a great episode, so go check that out. But she also has an awesome website at thepassportpackage.com where you can learn how to build better relationships. All right, Bill Cates is a successful entrepreneur, Hall of Fame speaker, best-selling author, and adventurer. Bill built and sold 2 book publishing companies and has spent over 30 years helping financial advisors acquire and serve more clients. Bill is the author of 8 books, including Radical Relevance and The Language of Referrals. His latest book is The Hidden Heist, Stop Robbing Yourself of Lasting Wealth. Man, we got to talk about this. He also hosts the Top Advisor podcast, ranked in the top 5% of podcasts worldwide. Bill's mission is to equip people with the mindset and the tools to have a better relationship with money, to achieve financial stability, independence, and lasting wealth. Bill, welcome to the Customer Wins.
Hey, it's great to be here with you. And just in case anybody misheard, it's not Bill Gates. Yeah, I missed it by 1 letter and a few bucks. But look, Mr. Gates has a lot of money. My goal is to help advisors make more money by, in the spirit of service to their clients and customers. So thank you.
Well, let's see if we can add some zeros to the back of the name there.
Amen. I'm all for that.
All right. For those who haven't heard my podcast before, I love to talk to business leaders about what they're doing to help their customers win, how they built and deliver a great customer experience, and the challenges of growing their own company. Bill, I'd love to understand how you're helping so many advisors win more customers. So how do you help people?
Yeah, so forever, and you kind of alluded to it, is referrals. I mean, I've been known as the referral coach, the original referral coach, the OG, people, all kinds of things. I've been at it for over 34 years with financial advisors. Now, when I say referrals, it's more than that. It's being more referable through your service. It's promoting, it's asking. Lately, we've been focusing on introductions, not just the willingness to refer or word of mouth, but actually getting connections, which are so important. And, it's a lot of people see referrals as kind of old school. I'm sorry, it's not old school. It's new school. It's still the way that most people want to meet their advisors. So call it old school if you want. It's actually in this noisy environment that we're in with all this social media and stuff. It's even more important now than ever before. So that's been my main thing forever. You mentioned my book, The Hidden Heist, we'll talk about later. You can see I got $1 million in a briefcase behind me because I like to talk about money stories. And I've been working with advisors lately around their money stories and their staffs, their team's money stories, and then ultimately their clients' money stories. So there's more empathy there. And it's not just about the numbers, it's about the relationship to money and helping advisors build better relationships through that. So that's kind of my newest thing. That's the gist.
So I don't want to go too far onto the referral side because you've been doing this forever. But there is a question that has been bothering me because I think there has been somewhat of a pushback on the whole idea of asking for referrals. And maybe it's the social media side. Maybe it's I feel like I'm taking advantage. I don't know. So do you recognize that? Is there a negativity associated to referrals?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But on both the clients and the advisor side. So first of all, some clients have had bad experience. They've had people that have been too aggressive around that, and it's left a bad taste in their mouth. Sometimes they feel like the only reason the advisor talks to them is to get more referrals. That's on one side. That's a pretty aggressive. When I get called for coaching from advisors for individuals and teams, um, they often say to me, and I have fun with this, they don't want to look like one of the three, let's call them Disney characters around referrals. They don't want to look like sleazy, pushy, and creepy. And so, that's the advisor side, right? They don't want to look needy. They don't want to look like business is down, like they're begging. They don't want to push people to feel uncomfortable. So, and I don't want you to feel that way either. I mean, no one wants to feel that way. It's all in knowing how to do it. So, because there's been a lot of bad experiences out there, or people have tried it, it hasn't worked, whatever. Um, a lot of people say, stop asking for referrals. Your clients don't want to give you, your clients aren't thinking about introducing to others. Well, that's bad advice. Yeah, your clients aren't necessarily thinking about introducing to others, but when you bring it up in the right way, many of them will. And so it's the right way. Michael Kitces, a lot of folks watching this know Michael and his research, and I've got a report I put out kind of based on that. It's like for high net worth wealthy individuals, 50% are meeting their financial professional through a referral from a friend or a family member or a colleague. Another 20% through centers of influence like accountants. So that's almost 70% are meeting their advisor through an introduction, and another 15% through social stuff, in-person social stuff like social events, like seminars. So you got a whopping 85% of the people you want to meet you through some sort of a relationship format, referrals, introductions. So doesn't it make sense to build a business based on how people want to meet you? I had a guy talking to him just yesterday. They're bringing me in to speak to their large RIA, and he says, we're very proud of the lead process we have in place. We generate a lot of leads for our advisors, and they're closing at about a 1 to 2% ratio. They're burnt out. They want the leads, but the leads don't convert. Well, because they're not meeting people the way people want to be met. So they're bringing me back to get back to the basics, old school, whatever you want to call it. Let's build a business based on how people want to meet us.
You know what it sort of feels like? If you watch a YouTube video and at some point the guy says, hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button or like. And then you're like, oh yeah, I should have done that, huh? Okay, I'll click it. So it's more like you just want to remind people, that's a possibility. I'm referable, in other words.
That's part of it. I call that promoting, encouraging, planting seeds. It's not an ask, but it's definitely part of the conversation.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the money mindset. So this is a different type of question I have.
Sure.
When you think about financial advisors, I think there's a natural tendency to think they have the best mindsets of money. But do they?
Well, they certainly have a better education than the average person, and that education will often lead to a better mindset. That's how I developed a better mindset. As just being around helping thousands of advisors bring in billions of dollars, I learned how money works. People listening to the show know how money works. And so what that does is it exposes some of our, lessons that didn't serve us when we were young, or, our parents never taught us about compounding or any of that stuff, right? Money is a scarce resource. No, money is not a scarce resource. It might be in your pocket right now, but that's not how money works. Right? So advisors are much further along, certainly than the average person, because they've been educated and they've been hopefully confronted and have taken a look at their money mindset. All right, so that's true. No question about it. What is also true is advisors are human. Advisors grew up with weird thinking, perhaps. Like I'll give you an example. One advisor I was coaching, his father was very resentful of wealthy individuals and thought they were, they cheated, they lied, they were grifters, da da da. And the truth is, some are, but most aren't.
Right.
But he couldn't become what he resented. Right. And so he had to realize he had to get past that. Other people grow up with scarcity mentality. And I actually just interviewed a neuroscientist that confirmed what I thought. We are actually born into this world with a bit of a scarcity negativity bias. It's part of our survival mechanism. And so no one's immune from that. And advisors get anxious when the market goes down, or they get anxious when they're losing a big client, or they get anxious, they're human, all of that. And sometimes that stuff transfers to their staff consciously or unconsciously. So it's important for advisors to take a look at their own money mindset, their own stories. A lot of that stuff, that anxiety, that scarcity, that whatever it may be for them, it almost never goes away. I liken it to a song that plays on the radio that you don't like. You just got to turn the volume down, right? Now you can rewire. There's ways to make it go away, but it's not easy. And so I think for advisors to understand that clients aren't just bringing their money to them. They're bringing their hopes, their dreams, of course. They're bringing their humanity. They're bringing their anxieties. They're bringing their fears, their fear of losing, all of that stuff that we see, and we wonder why they don't just follow our advice, because our advice is so logical and really makes the best sense for their money, et cetera. But if they don't take the time to understand what's going on behind that with their clients, what lessons did they grow up? What stories do they have to turn the volume down on? Then they're not really serving the client as well as they could. And so, first of all, for the advisor and their team to become aware of that, then build that empathy muscle, and then bring that to their clients. So with the hidden heist, we're selling a lot to advisors. One just bought 75 copies yesterday to give to prospects and clients as a way to bridge that conversation, a way to get into that money mindset conversation in kind of a soft way. Here's a book. Tell me what you think. Let's talk about it. And yeah, so that's a long answer to your question.
No, I love it though, because I think about my days as a financial advisor, and I loved financial advisement, but I think my own mindset is what made me get out of it. I mean, aside from the fact that I have the software company and I had a choice: do I pursue software or do I pursue financial advisement? and the truth was, I grew up really, really poor. And so I think I had a scarcity mindset around it when I would say to a client, hey, to hit your goals, you've got to save, I don't know, $20,000 a year. Sorry, make it 21 because you got to pay me $1,000 a year. And I felt like I was pulling away from their goals and their ability to get to those goals by paying me.
Okay.
Right. And it's a bad mindset.
Bad mindset. I mean, look, the fees that a client pays to an advisor, is an important part of the conversation, because that does pull away from the ultimate assets that are being invested, et cetera. But there's a way to make sure that value is well invested. So
of course. If I believe in my ability to help them grow their assets, it's totally worth it.
And protect their assets as well. Yes.
Exactly. But anyway, and the irony is with software, I have no guilt about that. Pay me for the software.
Well, okay, good. I mean,
it became an easy decision.
There's different ways around that mindset, right? You could plow through it, or you could just start a different company.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think it's really, I think, you hit on something that's really important, because every client has their own mindset of what money means to them. I remember having a client who was very wealthy, but they spent like they had no money. And we had to tell them, hey, you're wealthy. Right. You can spend your money. What does that mean? Buy first class tickets now. Don't ever think about not flying first class.
It's a common thing. They get into the habit, and it's a good one, of saving and investing. It could come out of fear of never having enough, which in that case is a good motivator for them to do it. But then that fear comes back to work against them, right? So
they don't get to enjoy what they have.
Yeah. So if I were in that situation, if I was coaching an advisor in that situation, I say, look, don't just tell them they have enough money. Don't just show them the numbers. Ask them where that's coming from. You're not the therapist, but you're a little bit of a coach. And, tell me more about that. What's driving that feeling? And get them to reflect on their own money story. And sometimes all it takes is for them to, my parents would tell me this, or my, this, or that, and then they become aware, which is the first step. And then they open up to your logical account, right? But if your logical account won't necessarily get them through that funky story they're telling themselves, it can sometimes, but it won't necessarily do that.
Well, it was fascinating with them because they were Depression era babies. They grew
Exactly.
up with money in the mattress, right? And
Exactly.
everything was scarce, and they had not been able to shed that kind of feeling.
My parents were like that. In my TED talk, I did a TEDx talk recently, and in that I say that my parents had a very cautious money story because they grew up, they were children of the Depression. And so they saw money as something to guard, not something to grow.
Yeah,
Right. And so that growth part was hard for them. I remember it wasn't until my dad was like 50 that I got him into a mutual fund that actually did very well. And he goes, "Oh, okay, you know." So yeah, I mean, so we got to deal with the whole person these days, or as advisors, we will be frustrated that they don't take our advice or that we have these difficult emotional conversations with them. If we don't attend to that part of the relationship, then that'll always be a frustration for us.
yeah. So I love that you said you can use the Hidden Heist book as a tool set with clients as an advisor. So what is the heist? If you can spill the
Well,
beans a little bit.
here it is. Spill the beans on the heist. Everybody loves a good heist, right? So we know that one great way to learn things is through stories. And so, unlike my other books, which are very straightforward, how to, the language of referrals, radical relevance, beyond referrals, very straightforward. This is a parable book. So with a co-author, Jeff C. West, we created an interesting dynamic. So it takes place in a bank, in a bank robbery. First line of the book, everybody face down on the floor, right? That's not your typical money education book. And
No.
so there's tension, there's suspense, there's twists and turns. There's also a lot of comic relief because these robbers are bumbly. And in fact, the main character of the book describes them as Moe, Larry, and Curly, like the Three Stooges, and bank robbers. But all in that, as the robbers are trying to figure out how to get past SWAT and the hostage negotiator. And by the way, we interviewed real hostage negotiators. We interviewed real bank robbery victims. I've done over 100 money stories. So all of this is based on truth stuff, in a sense, with a lot of poetic license. Um, so now the characters are stuck in the vault. Alden Beckett is a financial advisor. There's a lot more to Alden I won't want to reveal because it's some nice surprises in the book. But they're starting to talk about money. And we start talking about what are the mistaken beliefs, and money is a scarce resource, and rich people are evil, and poor people are lazy and apathetic, and all the stereotypes and all the stuff that keep people back from achieving what they could have. So the subtitle, stop robbing yourself of future wealth. Um, and so now I'm the straightforward guy. Jeff C. West is a storyteller. So he's brought these characters to life. And the audiobook is tremendous because we hired a real professional book reader, book actor to bring these
Nice.
characters to life. But we also have a few appendices. It's like, in case you missed it through the story, here's what we were telling you. So it's good. So it's a nice combination of story and entertainment and good lessons. So the advisors that are giving it to their clients are, in a lot of cases, they're giving it to their older clients to give to their young adult children. My personal trainer bought 3 copies for his 3 children for Christmas to give to them for them to read. So a lot of it's kind of geared to the millennials and the older Gen Zs. They still have time to do something different with their money. So that's
Yeah.
a big part of what's going on with it.
So it is a literal heist in the story, which is
Oh
awesome.
yeah, it's a
I
heist.
love that. But let's bring this maybe full circle here.
Yeah,
How
please.
much of the idea of a heist is mindset versus education versus just practice of how you deal with money?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And it's all 3 of those, right? And so one of the things that I say is that as you learn how money works, then, as I mentioned this earlier, you become a little more aware of your own stuff around money and maybe what you were taught or not taught that wasn't working for you. So it's kind of a continual loop of awareness, education, and then better action. And so as you learn how money works and you become aware of your mindset, then you're willing to take a little better action, and that reinforces. So it's an ongoing loop of growth, if that makes sense. All of those are important. Ultimately, the action is right, the most important, that you're doing the right thing for yourself, but in a way that feels right for you too. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah.
So, Bill, I want to ask you, and I don't know if you can codify this or not. And I'm going to preface this. I've written a book on how to change your beliefs, how to
Yeah.
create any behavior you want and become a better person by changing beliefs. So I also understand in asking this question that not every belief matches every person, is not appropriate for every person. Even if it's empowering for me, it doesn't mean it's empowering for you. So my
Okay.
question is, do you think there's any top 3 or 5 money mindsets everybody should try to adopt?
Yeah, let's play with this a little bit. I've not been at that specifically, but here's what comes to mind. I think first of all, understanding that money is not a scarce resource is a big one. And so, yeah, again, it may feel scarce in your pocket, your wallet, your bank account, but money flows. Money flows through
Mm-hmm.
an international economy. And so, how do we make more money or bring more money into our life? We get into the flow. In my TEDx talk, which I invite people to watch, I think you'll like it. It's only 11 minutes. It's kind of fun. Uh, I say that uh, one way to rethink this is money is an abundant resource that flows like a river, and I'm jumping into the currency. Now, I make the pun currency because actually the Latin root of currency is currens, which means flow like a river. So I think that's an important mindset. I think the whole idea of pay yourself first, right? Pay yourself first as a person in terms of your personal finance, and then also pay your business first in terms of a profit account. There's two ways to pay yourself first. I think that's a universal belief principle that pretty much everyone will adopt, and it makes sense. So that's one. Another one, and then from a mechanical standpoint, just the power of compound interest in time. I mean, I talk about that in my TEDx talk. I talk about it in the book. Everyone listening to this knows this, but most people aren't taught that. Why didn't my father teach me about compounding when I was 20 years old or 22 years old? Well, he couldn't teach me what he never was taught, right? And so this cycle of bad knowledge is perpetuated in our society. Now, some people
Yeah.
catch up. I caught up. I could have done even better had I known about that. So those are a couple that come to mind, if that makes sense.
No, actually, I'm really fortunate because back in college, I was part of the finance club at USC, and we brought in a speaker. And one of the things he said to us was, "Pay yourself first."
Yep.
And he said, "You got to think about it. Paying yourself first is to benefit your life. It could be your retirement. It could be saving for a house. It could be whatever it is. You need to be the person you want to be. Bills are secondary." But the way he then couched it was, pay yourself first and then afford what those bills or what's left over can afford, not work into it higher. Anyway, I'd love your take on pay yourself first.
Well, what's a belief that you think is universal? You asked me, what do you think is one of those guiding principles that virtually everyone can agree on or might follow?
So it actually falls along the scarcity one. And
Yeah.
my mentor said this to me: if I need the money, it'll be there. And that has served me so well. That has served me to the points when I had $5 to my name and I needed another $5, I was able to get it because if I needed the money, it would be there. I don't know if this is a good one. I'd love your judgment on it, which is I think of money as a tool. It's a tool to help you achieve the things you want to achieve.
Sure. Yeah. That's what it is. Now, it's a tool that intersects every aspect of one's life. So this is a belief I think that's good for people to adopt. And I talk about this in my TEDx talk in the book is there isn't a part of one's life that money doesn't intersect in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, and in my talk, I say, change your money belief, change your money story, you change your life because it intersects every aspect of our life. So when we have that awareness and we see that and we see the relationship, we can start to make little different decisions. I want to go back to this idea of it's not a pushback, but it's another way to think about there'll always be enough
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's a good way to think. I think it can be a good abundance mindset as long as we are taking action that will put us in the flow.
Yeah.
Because I used to think I had an abundance mindset. I used to think there would always be enough. But really what that was doing, that was fiction. That was a story that was fiction in my head. I really had a constant fear of never having enough. So for me, it was money denial. So sometimes these abundance thoughts that we think are abundance thoughts are actually money denial thoughts. And if we don't really self-reflect, we may be deluding ourselves. So yeah, there'll always be enough as long as I understand, here's another principle, money follows value,
I love that one. Yes.
right? Money. And so for me, the way I've gotten into the river, into the flow, is I help other people make more money. That's only what a lot of advisors do. They help, grow and protect. If you're an employee of a company, how do you bring more value, right? How do
Yeah.
you, educate yourself, bring a more skill, bring a better attitude, or maybe go to a place where that value is perceived better. Maybe it should be money follows perceived value, right? By the person who's buying, investing in that value that you bring. So, yeah, I believe in there'll always be enough because I believe that I'm always putting myself in the flow.
Yeah.
I would put those two together, if that makes sense.
I love that. I love that, Bill. And I have to remind myself that when my mentor gave me that advice that if I need the money, it'll be there, is when I was very, very poor. And I was
Mhm.
having a scarcity, problem.
Yeah.
And it taught me that I could take the actions to find the money. I could consider the options for how to find my way into the flow, as you say. And I
Yes.
did. I did take those actions. I did
Yes.
improve my life.
Yes.
Um, but I also want to give credit to a recent guest whose episode hasn't quite yet been published yet. But I don't know if you know Ellen Rogan.
Oh, I
She's
do. And
a
Ellen, yeah, I interviewed her for my podcast and we correspond from time to time. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, she was great. She actually reminded me to talk to money in the right ways. So I used phrases like stupid money or silly money to refer to a lot of money. She said, no, it's savvy money to have that kind of money. It's not stupid. It's savvy to get there. And I'm like, you're right. How we talk about money reinforces and or builds the mindsets that we have equally as well.
Filthy rich,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I mean, how you talk about it, how you think about it will shape what you attract, your actions. You can't become what you resent. You can't become, if you want to rewire your thinking, and you can do it, it's through constant actions and speaking and thinking that is taking you in the direction you want to go. But if you're using language and delving into or entertaining beliefs and thoughts that are antithetical to where you want to go, then guess what? You're not rewiring that brain. It's stuck where it is.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Bill, I often talk about artificial intelligence in my shows, and I don't know what you do with artificial intelligence, if anything. Do you have much experience with it?
Yes, in fact, you've been speaking to my avatar for this entire time right now. I just,
Nice.
if you want me to bring in the real Bill Cates, I can. Uh, yeah, well, yes, I use AI a lot, not in all the different ways. For me, mostly it's in content creation, it's in spurring ideas. Um, I also use it just very simply in how to do things. Like if I'm trying to figure out something, sometimes I go to YouTube, sometimes I'll just chat GPT. How do I make this post on LinkedIn? And it'll tell me exactly what to do. But it's mostly content creation and helping me think through my own thoughts, but giving me other ways to think about it. So I may even say, here's a title to a talk or to a podcast or to whatever. Give me other ways to title it. Give me other ways to think about it. And what's happened is, and I use mostly ChatGPT, I use Perplexity a little bit. It's learned me so much. It knows my books. All my books are loaded into my special bot. All my videos, it just knows me. And so
Yeah.
it can give my voice. And so then when I use it, I go, yeah, this is pretty accurate. I would say this. Now I always tweak it. The challenge we have to be careful around content creation. And there's lots of other ways to use AI, of course, in process flow and all, in structuring, calendars for ourselves and all of that. Is the authenticity piece, right? We've got to be careful. So for instance, I get comments on my LinkedIn posts that I can tell were written by an AI bot.
Yeah, for
In fact, I
sure.
had one guy, he was commenting a lot. And I said, oh, it looks like you're using, AI to do this. No response. A couple of those, right? And then I go back, I said, so tell me, what made you decide to use artificial intelligence rather than just, posting a comment? to make it more authentic. No response, right? Eventually he stopped commenting. But you can tell if it's authentic or not. And so that's a big part. So that's how I'm using it.
I'm curious if you have any perspective or vision of how AI could impact money mindsets in the future and how clients and advisors interact with money terms.
Well, yeah, I mean, I used it a little bit for creating the appendices in the book. I've learned it a little bit. I've used it for, so I've taken probably the top 20, I think most of them are in the book, money mindsets that don't serve us well, and given kind of another way to think. And I used AI to help me think through that a little bit, right? I mean, I came up with mine. I said, make this better, make this tighter. So yeah, we can use AI for that. AI is a tool to help us gain clarity, and especially in terms of content creation, a tool to help us gain clarity, gain perspective, stimulate our thinking. It can actually give us new thinking, ways we hadn't considered about that. So yeah, it can be used for all of that. The key is to take whatever it creates and then put it through your own mind and fine tune, tweak it, make it yours, make it natural, make it authentic. But it's a tremendous time saving tool. And what it does, it'll so a lot of advisors wish they could create more content. But it takes time and it takes thought and it takes energy and they're not inclined to do that in the first place. Well, AI can help you get through some of those barriers to make it more efficient for you. Just make sure you make it human. I've often given a prompt to ChatGPT. I said, this is great, but it sounds like it was written by artificial intelligence. Put my voice in it, make it more playful, make it more human, make it more real. And indeed, it will come back with something that's more real.
It really helps to have a body of work for it to reference. Like all my podcasts have been run into my AI. So it can speak my language, my style, et cetera, so well because of that.
So the more you use it, the more it will learn that.
Yeah.
You can also use other people's content. And you could say, here's the book by Brian Portnoy, right? Here's what Rich Walker says about this. Is, pull from them, but let's make it mine. I don't want to plagiarize. I don't want to steal their ideas. I don't mind quoting them in my work and attributing some of these thoughts to them. So it's all in the quality of the prompt. And
it is. In fact, one of my biggest lessons of the last year with AI is your greatest limit with AI is your ability to ask it the right questions or the best questions. It's amazing. I just realized I'm enjoying talking to you, but we're getting to the end here. So before I get to my last question, what is the best way for people to find and connect with you, Bill?
Yeah. So referralcoach.com is my main website for advisors, referralcoach.com. TheHiddenHeist.com is the book, TheHiddenHeist.com. And then if you want to watch my TEDx, I love it. The algorithm loves it when people watch it. Like, comment, share it. Is BillCatesTEDx.com, BillCatesTEDx.com. So or find me on LinkedIn. I reach out, tell me you found me through Rich Walker. We'll talk, we'll have fun. Yeah, I love to connect with folks. Thank you.
Go check out the TEDx. It's a good one.
Thank you.
All right. Here comes my favorite question to ask.
Oh boy.
Who has had the biggest impact on your leadership style and how you approach your role today?
Yeah. So here's what comes to mind for me. There's so many people that have impacted me in my business and all of this, but I want to tell you a guy. He's deceased now. He passed actually not that long ago. Great friend of mine. And I think there's a lesson for everybody in this. When I first his name is John Hurley. And when I first got started in this business I've sold a couple of businesses, and then I, was starting to get into this business of maybe speaking, coaching, training. And I was nervous about it. I doubted myself. And he said, Bill, you would be good at this. I know that you would be good at this. And that's like what I needed to hear to tip the scales into action in that direction. Had I not heard that from him, I wonder, would I have actually gone in the direction I went? And so sometimes we need those people. Newton's first law of motion: a body in motion tends to stay in motion, a body in motion, at rest tends to stay at rest. Body in motion tends to, stay in motion. unless acted upon by an outside force. John Hurley was that outside force. That's the power of coaching. That's the power of reading a book. That's the power of hearing a speaker. Sometimes we need that outside force to nudge us where we maybe fear a little bit or we doubt ourselves a little bit. So that happened probably 40 years ago. And so I give John Hurley that credit for jumping into this.
That is an awesome reminder of just how valuable it is to tell people what you see in them, especially when they don't see it themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be open to sharing fears, vulnerabilities, uncertainties about ourselves and letting them reflect back, because we can't see ourselves. You can't see the picture if you're in the frame, right? And sometimes people see different things in us that we don't see, or we may sense, but we need acknowledged for us to, are we self-sufficient? Yeah. And can those other people come in and nudge and help? And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh man, it's awesome. Okay, I got to wrap this up.
Yep.
All right. I want to give a big thank you to Bill Cates, author of The Hidden Heist, the original referral coach, and so many other things that you've been doing, TEDx speaker, et cetera. Thank you for being on this episode of The Customer Wins. So go check out Bill's website at referralcoach.com. And don't forget to check out Quick at quickforms.com, where we make processing forms easy. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion. We'll click the like button, share this with someone, and subscribe to our channels for future episodes of The Customer Wins. Bill, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Rich.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Wins podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.